Today we're going to be talking about See For Me. What's going on? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now, simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I have the privilege of being a writer, podcaster, and the film festival director for Horrific Hope, our one-stop shop to celebrate horror and mental health. If you would like information on this year's lineup, our sponsors, and where to buy tickets from, links are in the descriptions, along with more information about who we are, more podcasts, more movie reviews like this, links to all of our social media, Patreon, and most importantly, our mental health resource library. Alright, so let's talk about See For Me. See For Me is a home invasion thriller. And when I say I have a lot to say about that, I have a lot to say about that. That tells the story of a blind cat sitter who, while doing her job, encounters three men trying to rob the home of which she is pet sitting for, and it becomes a race against the clock. And oh yeah, she runs everything through an app called See For Me that basically gives her eyes on how to escape the people that are invading the home and trying to rob the person. Let me just start off by saying that while this film has great ideas, and this film, I love a Letterboxd reviewers version of their summing up this. This is basically Canada's answer to Mike Flanagan's Hush. Couldn't agree more, and I will also provide a link to that Letterboxd review in the descriptions below, just so you guys, just to give that person credit. Like I said, this film has good ideas. It's just not always the best execution. And so let me get into the good this movie does. Skyler Davenport plays our protagonist, Sophie, and she actually is one of the better parts of this movie. In creating the element of the movie where your protagonist is a blind girl creates a really interesting aspect of the story that allows natural tension to build. Davenport definitely does a great job in this movie. There are a lot of twists and turns that this movie does very successfully, and then you're reminded that this is a home invasion film. Home invasion movies are so freaking hard to do successfully. I'm very passionate about this. I don't know why though. I mentioned Hush previously. Hush, it does a really good job of being a home invasion film that genuinely is creepy and is tension-filled, draws you to your seat, and leaves its imprint on your viewership. There's also The Strangers, one movie that I would argue is the quintessential crown jewel of the subgenre. This movie is perfect in my book. I absolutely love this film, and it's creepy, it's genuinely scary, and the grounded nature of this really just kind of helps it stand out in the genre. But boy howdy is this movie formulaic. There are so many moments within this. Because I've seen other home invasion films, I predicted stuff, and while I was deferred a couple of times, it was very nice. The moments that I appreciate in this movie, I'm just gonna say that, give credit where credit is due. This movie disrupted me sometimes, and I love the filmmakers for that all the more. But then when I'm right, when I call something, it kind of makes me as a viewer being like, man, like this movie has such potential, and yet it's just staying in this like 4x4 box of what we think home invasion movies are. And I think Davenport kind of falls victim to this, whereas, you look at something like Hush, and Hush is, here you have a deaf protagonist that is facing off against one guy. Here you have three ordinary burglars. That's it. The lack of a character development and character detail in this movie is astonishing. I will say though, they attempt to do stuff with Davenport, doesn't work. Her character, like, the one thing that she's like actually good at in this movie, kind of what makes her character, is that she was a Olympic skier at one point, and yes, she did it blind. I don't know if it's a thing or not, but note to self, look in more of that, because that's a fascinating thing if that's a real thing. Also, note to you guys, I don't watch sports, so if that is a thing, I apologize in advance. I'm just not a sports guy. But yeah, going back to Davenport and the characters in this movie, literally one note, forgettable as possible. I guarantee that when you're talking about the home invasion genre, C for me is going to be a movie that you refer to as this. Oh yeah. I think I remember that movie. Literally nothing else I can say about this movie. Though I can tell you it premieres on Shudder April 7th, 2022. If you don't have a Shudder account, check the link in the descriptions below and check it out. There is a sign-up link in the bio below. I love Shudder. Shudder is one of my favorite streaming services. Between that and HBO Max, I'm always having something to watch. Go ahead and run this through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to give C for me a 1.5 out of 5. This movie is formulaic. It takes a potentially great concept and just rams it into the ground. This movie offers nothing. There's no groundbreaking of the genre. There's no tension, and the characters are just across the board all flat. Really, the only thing redeemable about this movie is Davenport's performance, but also at the same time, the very few, and I emphasize few, times that this movie actually does take me on for a loop. And now it's time for our mental health moments. New to our content, mental health moment is where we draw a theme of mental health from the movie or whatever we are reviewing in order to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health, if only for a few moments. The movie does character development really weirdly, and I promise I am going to tie this into mental health. Beginning of the film, our protagonist Sophie is a fiercely independent woman that really doesn't want any help from her mom or others around her. At the end of the film, she ends up having to trust people and learn to trust people and learning to ask for help. I want to emphasize that. She learns to ask for help. I want to emphasize to you that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to be vulnerable. In fact, vulnerability is something that I would greatly encourage, because at the end of the day, no one is perfect. We all fall short, and we're all going to have bad days. But even more than that, I will also say that vulnerability makes us human. And there is very little that we can actually do on our own, and sometimes a part of healing and a part of overcoming depression and anxiety means relying on others and actually being vulnerable enough to say that you have a problem in the first place. And I really hope that this is an encouragement to you as an individual, whoever's watching this right now, to understand that it's okay not to be okay, and that it's okay to ask for help. The beginning of the journey for help is coming to the realization that you have to first admit that you have a problem and that you need the help. So, how many of you watching this right now are in need of help? Hard question. Are you in need of help? Are you in need to be vulnerable? That's what I want to leave you with. That's how I want to end this video. And if you or someone you know needs any mental health resources, check the link in the descriptions below. Check out our mental health resource library. Sometimes dialing a number as simple as the suicide prevention hotline or checking out where therapists are in your area is a great way to take the first step into being vulnerable. Have a good night, guys.